Good afternoon again, folks. Welcome to today's second front load and another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels, and we are going to that horrible world known as the JRC. But before we do, the usual disclaimers and just a general rant because I can't help myself. When you find places like the JRC, like Agape, and schools like it, literally in a string that is provable, that's connected from California all the way to Florida. You deal with horrific abuse cases. And then you have the media constantly trying to tell you that you're misogynistic somehow because you don't believe a liar. Yeah, we got problems because I have fought for these kids for my entirety of my adult life. They are male and female. I dare one of these people to go up to one of the boys, to someone like Andre McCollins, and try to tell them that males don't get abused. In fact, I dare you to come to my neurodivergent community and try to say something stupid like that. See what happens. We see it every day. Every day, a new name gets put up on the disability memorial, male and female alike. There's a reason why the majority of my neurodivergent community has backed Depp. Because he's another one of us who's gone through this and was damn lucky to escape, and I'm glad that he did, but there's so many of us who don't. And then you want to come on here and come to my TL and tell me it's just internal misogyny. Really? Really? I've been in the media before because of my fight and my stand. I have done one thing the media hasn't. I've been consistent. I have never strayed from 2004 to 2023 from where I stand. And I have stood here whether the person who was abused was famous or not. These so-called media people have not ever been consistent. Not ever. And I can say this as someone who's been fighting places like this for over a decade. Okay? Many of us in my community have been fighting this fight longer than we care to count. Defended them all. Famous, not famous, it doesn't matter. But the only time the media pipes up is when it's a pretty female celebrity. Now, am I saying pretty female celebrities do not go through abusive relationships? No, not even close to saying that. What I am saying is you condemn the people before you have all the facts. Just believe, right? Right? Isn't that the mantra? Just believe. Even if what they're saying makes no coherent, logical sense and even defies the laws of physics, just believe. Do you know how many of us who have been abused have been vilified? Called out of control animals? For God's sake, look at these videos. Look how people like Dr. Matthew Israel justify the torture and the murder of these kids. Look at it. Look at it. Yeah. I've been consistent. I've stood where I always have stood, where I will continue to stand. You media have been all over the place, and you only cry out when it's a pretty rich female celebrity. The only reason why you dug into the teen community is because someone with the status of Paris Hilton had to beg you to. I've been consistent. Who's the real misogynist here? Is it someone who's been consistent with standing with her own over 14 years? In the trenches, in my Senate hallways, in senators' offices, at rallies, at conferences, boots on the ground? Or is it these journalistic warriors who can't even show up for real victims, but they can sit there and cry misogyny for AH? Sorry, but that's never going to stop bugging me. So you come at me, and I don't think you quite understand who it is that you're dealing with. You come at my community, you really don't understand who you're dealing with. Yeah. Another thing about my community, we are notorious, 100% notorious to stand up against what we feel is an injustice. And no amount of bullying or media stupidity is going to make us move from our stand. Just saying. Now, to the disclaimers, shall we? In the description box, folks, you're going to find a link to the article that the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read. It's written by NeuroClastic, a small non-for-profit started by autistics for autistics, wherein they interviewed and surveyed over 900 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. Matter of fact, the JRC doesn't want you to read this article so much, they've threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. Well, folks, NeuroClastic has refused, so you know the drill. Please read that article and share it on all your social media. Also included in there is NeuroClastic's public statement regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding, folks, in case the JRC actually sees through with their threat. Sorry. Our G's suck out here, just so you know. Missouri is sheer nightmare fuel when you have allergy issues. Just saying. Also included in there is the Ozark's first article in regards to the Agape boarding school, now known as Stone for Help boarding school situation. Speaking of, this is a so-called Christian-themed boarding school based out of Stockton, Missouri that takes in so-called troubled male teens that has pending, folks. Over 21 civil lawsuits, claims, and allegations leveled against it, all which have been substantiated by the Missouri Department of Social Services, and they include the following: sodomy, rape, sexual assault, child abuse, psychological and emotional abuse, child trafficking, starvation, and that's just for starters. You have one former staff member arrested by the FBI, another, a doctor, still on the premises up on multiple claims of sodomy, rape, and sexual assault of the students there, Again, substantiated, folks. Learn that word. AH stands. Learn what that word actually means, please, for the love of God, for all of us that actually have brains. Sorry, not sorry. And of course, we have our Attorney General too busy chasing after drag queens and trying to defund public libraries and failing to actually defend the kids of the state. And you've got a governor that not even an intervention is going to help. So please get us, the few of us too poor to get out of here, the hell out of here. Also, circulate all of that on all your social media. We also have, as always, the pertinent links to the Stop the Shots campaign, including Autistic Hoya's massive archive on the subject, Jennifer Masemba's behavioral sheet of shockable offenses, a clip out of the 7-hour ordeal undergone by Andres McCollins back in 2002, and the ever-present, very self-explanatory Change.org Shut the Judge Rotenberg Center Down petition. When we discuss the JRC, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with disabilities being tortured and abused. If you do have young children present, please go ahead and use your headphones. This channel is marked not for children for a reason. We use profanity on occasion and speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and watching this, very obviously, it's parental supervision. All right, get your common tea, folks. Square your shoulders. For we are once again about to descend into the mad ravings of the lunatic mind known as Dr. Matthew Israel. You're going to hear gaslighting, victim blaming, pseudoscience and lies, abuse and torture apologencia, all coming from a man with a massive ego and even larger God complex. So folks, prepare yourselves for the stupid, alright? So where we left off in the last vid, we are finishing up on this so-called testimonial. We are going to read it in its context and again allow you to know that this was written in support of the JRC, and then we are going to dissect it. I'm going to show to you both the double standards that we are subjected to because of the medical model and what's just insane, all right? Okay. About the GED, it saved my life. There are lots of opponents to this controversial yet potential life-saving treatment, and understandably so. Okay, for the love of God. Now, I'm sorry, but I'm going to put the JRC on blast as per usual. Kind of like the whole line of point out onto the doll, where you see where I'm going, right? I want someone to actually go ahead and tell me in what way did the GED actually save their kids' lives? I don't want to hear anecdotal bull. I don't want to hear parents, but they stopped banging their heads and that saved their lives for 5 minutes. 5 years if you're lucky. But when it comes to a head today, and it will, when that trauma takes a hold of them, do you really think that the kid's going to sit there and say it saved his life when he's staring down the barrel, so to speak? Because as someone who's been through that, who has PTSD, I'm going to tell you, yeah, that. The truth of the matter is GED has saved no one's life. I'd also like you to try and tell that to the parents of the 6 dead kids that the JRC has blood on their hands for. See what they have to tell you. They like to ram that home over and over and over again. But you know the whole Goebbels quote from back in the day, right? If you say a lie often enough, people will buy it. I'm sorry. Meet the person that never worked on. The more you lie about it, the more suspicious I'm going to get. That's why the media couldn't convince me of, JD. But then again, I already didn't trust them, so there's that. You can thank the JRC for that, media, if you didn't simp so hard for people who torture us. But then again, even then, Anyways, back to the subject. For someone who has never had the kind of problems that I had or has dealt with anyone who's had my kind of problems when hearing about the GED for the first time, it's only natural to cry torture. Nah, kid, I'm gonna stop you. I'm gonna stop you right there. You wanna know why? I was you. Do not sit there and say, you never had my kind of problems. You didn't, and you just don't know. Honey, I was you. The people out there in the streets today in Boston, they were you too. We were you. Do you hear me, parents? Do you hear me, JRC? We were these kids. But you didn't self-harm. Bullshit, I didn't. I used to slam my hairbrush into my head repeatedly at full force as hard as I could until my head bled in multiple places. I would gouge into my skin until I bled. I would punch myself in the face, and the legs, and the arms, and the stomach. Lighters. Yeah. Oh, but you didn't have violent tendencies. You didn't attack. You should talk to my stepsister sometime. Yeah. Okay? Because when I went into autistic meltdown one time when pushed too far. Okay? But you never did dangerous things, kid. Yeah, I did. I really did. I did all of those things. And here I still am. And I was not tortured. Think on it. Do not sit there and tell me that I do not understand. Do not tell these other autistics who are fighting for you, for those kids still stuck in that place, that we don't understand. That we were never as bad as you. We didn't have the behaviors, because I can tell you point blank, kid, yes, I did. I still do. Because guess what? No matter what they tell you, those don't go away entirely. What I've been able to do with a lot of work with professionals who weren't psychotic was get those behaviors down to a base level so I'm able to function and work and live in society. Have relationships, have roommates like Paul and Sid, who's out living on her own now, but you get my point. Quit trying to convince us that you don't understand, you've never seen kids this bad, when I was the kid. Okay? Just stop. Because you sound like an idiot. And I know you're not the idiot, kid. But the people who prompted you to write this, if it was indeed you who wrote it, yeah, they've been telling you lies, kid. They've been telling you lies your whole damn life. And we're not crying torture, kid. We're calling it like we see it. And those medical records and ER documents, they don't lie. However, in reality, beyond the GED is much nicer alternative than being warehoused in the hospital, incarcerated, doped on psychotic point to oblivion. That's the lie, kid. They're lying to you and you can't see it. This is not reality. This is not the reality of these other programs. And kid, if you think that the kids in these other programs do not have the same issues that you do, you're lying to yourself. I've worked in this field in unofficial and official capacity. I can tell you 100%, 100%. Look at me. Yes, they do. They do indeed. They are able to do all the things that you mentioned without spending 1 second being tortured. These are kids who had the same behavior issues and problems that you did. And they, through their non-violent, non-torturous programs, were able to move on into their lives and bring those down to a base level so they can be able to function without being tortured, without being drugged out of their gourds, without being warehoused. I know this because I've seen the numbers, kid. I've worked with these kids and families one-on-one, and for the love of God, do not tell me I've never seen kids this bad, Dr. Israel. I've been inside their houses with their families. I've seen the bars on the windows and on the doors. Guess what? Those other programs that did not make those kids jump through hoops for so-called privileges, those programs that do not rely on torture and aversives and punishment, but on logical, hear me on this, logical solutions, such as digging into where are these things coming from and providing the reasonable accommodations, the assistive devices, the taught coping mechanisms, and ways to self-soothe and self-calm. Yeah. They weren't warehoused, kid. They weren't drugged out of their gourd. They weren't locked in a psychiatric unit. I know this because I worked with them. I've seen it. My region covered 25% of the state. Thousands of kids, teenagers, adults. Do not tell me, out of such a large quantity of people, that none of them had the issues that you did. Because it isn't true. And you know what they say about numbers. Unlike humans, they don't lie. But let's move on here, shall we? A brief 2-second shock to the surface of the skin sure beats out spending my days restrained and drugged on drugs and making any academic success. Again, that's the lie. That's the Kool-Aid, kid. That's the Kool-Aid. And I hope to God that this was prompted. Will go gentle. And not actually your own words. I hope you really don't believe this garbage they sell you. Because it's a lie. Because I was you. I too graduated. I'd already done half of college by the time I had graduated. I was never drugged out of my gourd anyway. I was never warehoused. I made that academic progress without being tortured. I did not like being on the GID when I felt like acting up because it prevented me from being able to do so. That's another lie, kid. That's what they told you to say, and I'm sorry, but you can't convince me any different. Your lowest setting is 3 times more powerful than a police taser, and as someone who's gone through abuse, a punch in the face takes 2 seconds, but it leaves a mark. It's a 2 second pain. A 2 second pain can last a lifetime, kid. Take it from me, I can tell you. But in the end, I'm thankful for the GED because of the enormous progress I made with it and have continued to make once I was no longer needed it. Kid, it's not success. You're masking. You're masking and you're lying to yourself. As someone who masked for an enormously long amount of time, let me tell you what happens when you become too exhausted to mask anymore. You regress. Trigger warning, I'm at curse here. You regress like a motherfucker. Happened to me when I was 16. I went from being far more adult than anybody should be at that age to having toiletry trouble like I was a toddler. I had to relearn many of the skills that I was once doing daily. There's going to come a point when you can't pretend to be like everyone else anymore, and it takes a very heavy toll. The GED did not help you. I hope to God you get the therapy that you need to be able to handle the fallout for when that autistic burnouts come. Because I'm going to tell you, kid, if you keep masking, if you keep drinking the Kool-Aid, and if you keep pushing down the trauma and the abuse that you suffered, that you watched your fellow students go through, it's going to be brutal. Let's finish it up, shall we? Some people may wind up spending the majority of their life at the JRC while being able to enjoy the benefits and privileges of the program, like others, like myself, are able to go on to live an independent life. That's that thing. That's that division they like to cause. High functioning, low functioning. Functioning fluctuates for all of us. There are times when things hit that are so bad that I literally go nonverbal. It can outlast for an hour. For some of us, it could go for days. Okay? This is why we don't like that label. It's not because you're just not acknowledging the difference between you and my kid. Yes, I am, Karen. I'm trying to get you to realize, first off, I'm more like your kid than you will ever be. And 2, my functionality can go from 11 to 1 in 0 to 60 under the right circumstances. And it's only up to God even knows what, how long that functioning at the level 2 is going to be. The things that they tell you are privileges, kid, are not privileges. You have the right to go out and enjoy life without having to earn it like everybody else. The bottom line is, if those who oppose the GED had their way, I would be currently locked up and heavily medicated at the hospital or in jail or even dead. So for those who have said that to you, please don't. No, Brian. That's what Dr. Israel wants you to think. That's what the medical model wants you to think. But it's not true, kid. What we're trying to tell you, what they don't want you to know, is that there are as many programs out there as there needs to be. We know in real reality that there is no one size fits all for all of us. Also, anyone that gives you the all or nothing approach that Dr. Israel does should set off every single red flag you could possibly wave in your brain at the same time. Because no medical treatment is all or nothing, kid. We're going to close on that. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few that we do tend to get removed from time to time. So please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time. And as always, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one. Bye-bye, everyone.